It's the worst feeling, isn't it? You step outside in the biting cold of January, the ground is hard, maybe dusted with snow. You walk over to that beautiful potted Japanese maple you've spent 3 years nurturing, or maybe it's your favorite patio rosemary bush that always fills the air with its lovely scent. You touch a branch, and it's brittle. You look down, and the pot is frozen solid, roots and all. That months of love, all the care, all the watering and feeding, gone overnight. That deep dread, the disappointment, the feeling that winter has just stolen another one of your beloved plants, it's a pain every gardener knows. But here is the truth, and I need you to lean in and listen closely. Winter doesn't have to kill your potted plants. The single biggest killer of container plants isn't the cold air. It's the lethal combination of frozen roots and drying wind. And with just a few ridiculously easy, low-cost tricks, you can completely change that outcome. You can keep those precious roots alive and thriving, even when the wind chill drops the temperature to single digits in places like upstate New York or the Canadian prairies. In fact, one of the 10 simple tricks I'm going to share with you today is so basic, so cheap, and so effective that you'll be genuinely shocked you haven't made it a staple in your winter routine for years. This is about saving you money, saving you heartbreak, and ensuring your garden is ready to explode with life the minute spring arrives. Welcome back to the channel, where we believe every gardener, no matter where you live, from a small suburban yard in Dallas, Texas in Zone 8 to a wind-swept balcony in Liverpool, UK in Zone 9, can grow smarter, not harder. If you are tired of spending a fortune every spring replacing plants that winter took from you, and if you love the deep satisfaction of keeping your favorites alive through every single season, then you are in the right place. Go ahead right now before we jump into the first life-saving tip and hit that subscribe button. Tap the little bell notification too so you never miss another piece of advice that is literally designed to save your plants, your time, and your money. It helps this channel tremendously, and it ensures you become a much smarter, more prepared gardener. Let's get started. Trick 10. Grouping pots together. We're starting with what might seem like the most obvious trick, but it's the one most often overlooked. Trick number 10 is simply grouping your pots together. We call this the Plant Huddle. Think of it like this. Plants, much like people, survive better in a community. When you have a collection of potted plants spread out all over your deck or patio, every single pot is completely exposed to the wind chill and the brutal surrounding cold air. The ceramic or plastic walls of those pots are releasing heat constantly, and that frigid air is rushing over them. But when you gather all your pots, and I mean literally push them tightly, shoulder to shoulder, into one giant cluster, the entire dynamic changes. The outer layer of pots acts like a protective windbreak and a thermal barrier for all the pots on the inside. The thin layer of air and the soil mass of each pot radiates a tiny bit of warmth, and when they are tightly packed, that heat is trapped in the center. It's about insulation through mass. The pot walls stop releasing heat into the freezing air because they are now touching another pot wall or another body of soil. Even a tight group of 6 or 8 average-sized pots, say those 12-inch terracotta containers, will have a center temperature that is often several degrees warmer than the pots on the outside, and significantly warmer than a single pot standing alone. Here's your bonus hack for this trick. If you have smaller pots, like those little 6-inch containers for winter pansies or herbs like thyme and sage, physically tuck them inside bigger ones in the gaps between the larger pots. It's the ultimate shelter. Just make sure the smaller pot is not sitting in water at the bottom of the larger one. The bigger pot acts as a cozy, insulated sleeve, giving that smaller root ball critical protection from the cold. Do you currently cluster your pots together into a winter shelter, or are they spread out all over your patio? Let me know in the comments below. I'm curious to see how many of you are already using this simple community method. Trick number 9. Use mulch for insulation. Moving on to trick number 9, we focus on the surface of the soil itself. Once you've grouped your pots, you need to protect the root crown and the surface area. Trick number 9 is to use a thick layer of mulch for insulation. In the natural world, the forest floor is almost never bare. It's covered in decaying leaves, pine needles, and organic debris. This isn't just to feed the soil, it's a brilliant natural insulator. That's what we need to replicate in our containers. The top of the soil in your pot is exposed to a lot of heat loss, and that cold exposure can stress the plant crown. You need to visualize this process. Imagine that thick, dark layer of mulch as a warm blanket tucking your plant in for the winter. We're not talking about a half-inch of shredded bark here, which is fine in summer. For winter protection, we need a substantial layer. Think 3 to 4 inches thick. What kind of mulch is best? You have plenty of cheap, easy-to-find options. Shredded leaves are fantastic. They decompose slowly and offer great insulation. Straw, not hay, is another excellent choice. It's light, airy, and creates pockets of insulating air. Even pine needles are great, especially if you have acid-loving plants like blueberries or rhododendrons in pots. The goal is to cover the entire soil surface right up to the base of the stem or trunk. This acts as a barrier, slowing down the rate at which the cold can penetrate the pot from the top. And more importantly, it helps keep the moisture level stable, preventing the soil from drying out on sunny winter days. Now, while this mulch blanket is absolutely vital for protecting the top, it's not enough on its own. The sides of the pot are still completely exposed, and that's where most of the lethal cold penetrates. So stick around, because trick number 8 is the logical next step in our plant protection plan, and it's the one that deals directly with that vulnerable, freezing pot wall. Trick 8. Wrap pots. Bubble wrap, burlap, or fabric. This brings us to trick number 8, which is all about addressing the single most exposed element of your container plant, the pot itself. We are going to learn how to wrap your pots for insulation. You've grouped your plants, you've mulched the top, now you need to put a coat on the roots. The material of your pot dictates how quickly it loses heat. A thin plastic pot is a terrible insulator, but a thick, porous terracotta or clay pot is often even worse because the moisture in the clay can freeze, leading to both pot damage and accelerated freezing of the root ball. We need a physical insulating barrier around the container. This is where you can get creative and very inexpensive. Your best friend here is simple bubble wrap. Get a roll of the large bubble type and wrap it completely around the pot, usually 2 to 3 layers deep, all the way from the rim down to the base. The tiny pockets of air trapped inside the bubble wrap are phenomenal insulators. Once you have the bubble wrap in place, secure it with some heavy-duty tape or twine. If you don't have bubble wrap, don't worry. This is where you can use old materials like burlap sacks, a thick piece of felt fabric, or even an old, slightly damaged moving blanket you might have in the garage. For large, heavy specimen plants, like a big olive tree or a favorite fuchsia that you're overwintering, you can take an old piece of discarded carpet padding and wrap it around the container. These materials all serve the same purpose. They trap a layer of still air next to the pot wall, which slows down the transfer of cold from the outside air into the soil. I'm telling you, this works. I remember a couple of years ago I was trying to save a very established fragrant rosemary plant in a large terracotta pot. It was a cold snap in Zone 6B near Boston, and I didn't have time to move it indoors. All I did was tightly wrap the pot in an old, thick moving blanket I had lying around. I secured it with some rope. The plant survived the 10-degree nights with no damage whatsoever. The root ball was completely protected. My neighbor, who did nothing to his pot, lost his rosemary. Now it's your turn to tell me, what's the most unconventional, creative thing you have ever used to protect one of your plants from the cold? Drop your answer in the comments below. I've heard everything from old sweaters and socks to pieces of salvaged foam board and even flattened pizza boxes. Let's see who has the most innovative winter hack. Trick 7. Elevate pots off cold ground. We've huddled our plants together, we've tucked them in with a mulch blanket, and we've even given them a nice warm jacket of bubble wrap or burlap. You might think that's enough, but we're forgetting about one of the most ruthless heat thieves in your garden, the ground itself. This brings us to trick number 7. You must elevate your pots off the cold ground. I'm talking specifically about hard surfaces here, your concrete patio, your asphalt driveway, or a stone deck. During a deep frost, these surfaces act like giant, energy-sucking cold sinks. They draw heat out of everything they touch. They pull the warmth right out of the bottom of your pot faster than you can say, winter is coming. Think of it this way. The bottom of the pot is a critical point of contact. If the temperature of the concrete slab is 25 degrees Fahrenheit, the soil at the very bottom of your pot will quickly fall to that same temperature. And that's exactly where the primary anchor roots are, making them the most vulnerable part of the root system to freezing and damage. The solution is deceptively simple. Break the contact. You need to create an air gap between the frozen ground and the base of your pot. The easiest, cheapest way to do this is with specialized pot feet. They're usually small, durable pieces of terracotta, rubber, or plastic. You just tuck 3 of them under the edge of the pot, and voila! You've created a thermal break. But if you don't have pot feet, please don't let that stop you. Look around. This is where that creative, resourceful spirit of the experienced gardener comes in. You can use a few ordinary bricks. Just make sure they're laid flat and stable. Even better, you can use small chunks of scrap wood, maybe a couple of 2x4s cut into 3-inch squares. The wood is an excellent insulator and will not transfer the cold the way stone or metal would. The key is to lift the pot just an inch or 2 off the surface. That small gap, filled with air, is all the insulation you need to prevent that lethal bottom-up freeze. Here's your ultimate cheap bonus hack for this trick, especially if you have a lot of pots. Use an old wooden pallet. Those free pallets you sometimes see behind stores are perfect. Lay the pallet down and you instantly have a large, elevated platform that is insulated from the ground, providing a clean, dry, and thermally separated space for all your huddled and wrapped plants. It costs literally nothing and saves your entire collection. Remember, the goal is to prevent that direct contact, that cold transfer, which is so deadly to your root structure. Elevate them and you take away the ground's ability to steal your plant's last reserves of warmth. Trick 6. Move pots to sheltered spots. Now that we've insulated the pot walls and elevated the bases, it's time to talk about location, location, location. We are moving into trick number 6. Relocate your pots to the most sheltered spots available. The difference between an open area, like the middle of your lawn, and a sheltered microclimate can be several degrees of temperature difference, and that small difference is often the critical line between survival and root death. We're looking for places that are protected from 2 main enemies, wind and overhead precipitation, especially freezing rain and snow accumulation. Where are these natural shelters? A covered porch or a deck right up against the house wall is fantastic. The wall of your house, especially a south or west-facing wall that absorbs warmth during the day, will radiate a slight amount of residual heat into the evening. This creates a pocket of warmer air. In the UK, this is often called the sun trap effect, and it's a lifesaver for potted agapanthus or citrus plants you can't fully bring inside. A completely unheated garage or shed can be an ideal temporary hotel for your plants, particularly during the coldest dips. For instance, in Zone 5 areas like the Midwest of the U.S., where temperatures plunge well below zero, you might have a potted rose or a valuable Japanese Andromeda. You don't need to keep the garage warm, just above freezing. A closed garage often stays 10 or 15 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than the outside air, which is enough to protect the roots from deep, killing freezes. Just remember, open the garage door on nice sunny days for some light and air circulation, and check the soil moisture. Another great spot is under the wide eaves of your roof or tucked against a large hedge. Eaves provide that crucial overhead protection, keeping freezing water and snow from soaking the soil and leading to rot or freezing. Visualizing success here is powerful. Imagine walking out onto your sheltered porch in the middle of a cold February morning, maybe in Portland, Oregon, or Vancouver, British Columbia, and still seeing that beautiful burst of green life, your Siberian iris or your hardy lavender, smiling at you, perfectly tucked away from the worst of the weather. That feeling of preservation and smart gardening is what we're aiming for. But what if you live in a tiny flat, or your potted plants are simply too large and too numerous to move them into a garage or onto a small porch? What if you have a massive planter that weighs hundreds of pounds, like a big olive tree in California that just shouldn't be moved? If you can't move them at all, or if your sheltered spot just isn't cutting it in a severe cold snap, the next trick will surprise you because it turns the soil itself into your most powerful insulator. Trick 5. Bury pots in the ground. This is the ultimate, gold standard method for protecting the root ball when you absolutely cannot bring your plant indoors, but you know your local temperatures are going to plummet well below what the plant can handle. We call this trick number 5, bury your pots in the ground. This might sound counterintuitive, especially if you've spent all this time decorating your patio with them, but this hack is based on pure, undeniable science. The earth insulates better than air. As we've discussed, the air temperature can swing wildly, but the soil below the frost line remains relatively stable and is always warmer than the outside air temperature during the winter. By sinking your potted plant into the ground, you are essentially borrowing the Earth's natural, enormous geothermal blanket to protect the vulnerable roots. This trick is particularly crucial for gardeners in the colder Zone 5 and 6 areas like Michigan, Ohio, or much of New England, trying to save slightly less hardy plants such as dwarf citrus trees or tender varieties of hydrangea and Japanese pyrus that are only marginally hardy for their area. Here is the simple, step-by-step process. First, dig a hole in a sheltered part of your garden, maybe a vegetable patch that's currently empty, or a protected border near the house. The hole should be slightly wider than your pot and deep enough so that when you place the pot into it, the rim of the container is flush with the ground level. Second, place the pot into the hole. It is vital that you leave the plant in its pot. Do not remove the plant. The container walls will keep the root system intact and make it easy to lift in the spring. Third, and this is critical, backfill the hole tightly around the sides of the pot with soil, mulch, or even dry leaves. You want to eliminate all air gaps around the sides. The soil surrounding the pot now acts as a buffer, shielding the roots from the fluctuations of the freezing air above. The top of the pot is protected by the surrounding garden soil and maybe some extra mulch you put on top, and the bottom and sides are fully protected by the immense thermal mass of the earth. I once thought my small patio lemon tree, which was just too big to lug into the house for the whole winter, was doomed when we had an unprecedented cold snap in Northern Virginia, which is generally Zone 7. I quickly sank it into the ground near the south side of my shed. I completely covered the topsoil with straw, and that simple hack saved it. The tree thrived the next summer and produced a fantastic crop of lemons. It was proof that sometimes the oldest, simplest tricks are the most effective. Burying the pot gives you months of peace of mind. Come spring, usually after the last threat of frost, you simply dig the pot out, dust it off, and place it back on your patio, ready to explode with new life. We've covered 5 powerful physical ways to protect your plants. But what about the less obvious threats? What about the hidden dangers of soil moisture in winter, or the silent, sneaky damage caused by wind? We are only halfway through our survival list, and the remaining tricks address these critical, often missed factors. Stick with me as we reveal the next essential step, the truth about watering your plants in the cold. 4. Water before frost hits. We've talked about external physical defenses, the wrapping, the huddling, the burying. But now we have to address what's happening inside the pot, because what you do with water in the winter is one of the most misunderstood and crucial steps in saving your roots. This leads us to trick number 4. Water your plants thoroughly right before a hard frost hits. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Doesn't watering in winter cause the roots to freeze solid and rot? Yes and no. It's a delicate balance, and here's why this trick works. First, let's look at the science. Dry soil is the enemy of winter survival. A bone-dry pot of soil will lose heat extremely fast, and air pockets within that dry soil will freeze quickly, creating a harsh environment for the roots. But moist soil has thermomass. It can hold heat much better than dry soil. Think of it like this. Dry soil is an empty cup that freezes instantly. Moist soil is a thermos. Water is actually a better insulator than air, and it takes significantly more energy and time for water to transition from a liquid state to a solid, frozen state. So when a significant cold snap is predicted, say a forecast that calls for temperatures below 25 degrees Fahrenheit, you want to give your plants a deep, slow drink a day or two beforehand. This ensures the entire root ball is thoroughly hydrated. That moisture surrounding the roots provides a protective buffer against the rapid temperature drops. The key here is hydrated roots resist cold damage better than dry, stressed roots. However, a massive caution must be added here, and this is where most people go wrong. You must avoid overwatering. Overwatering in winter is a death sentence, leading to root rot because the plant is dormant and not using much water. The goal is a moist root ball, not a soggy one. The soil should feel like a wrung-out sponge, not a soaking wet rag. The water needs to drain completely out of the bottom of the pot. Never let the pot sit in a saucer of standing water after the cold hits. For gardeners in the very cold Zone 4 areas like Minnesota or Maine, where the ground freezes solid for months, this pre-frost watering is essential, but you only do it sparingly throughout the winter, perhaps once every 3 to 4 weeks on a relatively mild day, and only if the soil is dry an inch or two down. Water on those milder days when the air temperature is above freezing, so the water has a chance to soak in and drain out, rather than immediately freezing on the surface. So tell me in the comments, do you currently water your potted plants at all during the winter months, or do you let them completely dry out? Knowing this can help us understand the common mistakes people are making. Remember, a thirsty root is a vulnerable root, but a waterlogged root is a dead root. Trick 3. Use frost cloths or row covers. Now that we've taken care of the roots and the pot, we need to consider the air right around the plant's leaves and stems. This leads us to trick number 3. Use lightweight frost cloths or agricultural row covers to create a mini greenhouse effect. For plants that are still too large to bring inside, or for those nights where the cold is just a little too intense for their natural hardiness, a physical covering is your best friend. But this is where you need to be strategic. Do not use plastic sheeting. Plastic sheeting is cheap, yes, but it traps moisture, doesn't breathe, and if the sun comes out, the air underneath it can heat up dramatically, effectively steaming your plant. This sudden temperature fluctuation and lack of air circulation can be more damaging than the cold itself. Instead, invest in a good frost cloth. It's also known as horticultural fleece or row cover fabric. These materials are spun from lightweight polypropylene and are specifically designed to be breathable. They allow air and some moisture to pass through, but here's their magic. They raise the temperature underneath by anywhere from 2 to 8 degrees Fahrenheit simply by trapping the Earth's residual warmth and preventing radiant heat loss to the night sky. Think of it like this. It's like giving your plants a breathable, down alternative jacket. You simply drape the fabric over the plant, making sure it extends all the way to the ground, and secure the edges with bricks or stones to trap the heat inside. You can even build a small temporary hoop structure, maybe with some flexible PVC pipe or even old wire hangers, to keep the fabric from resting directly on the leaves. This is especially useful for saving things like tender bay laurel trees in the UK or early blooming camellias in Zone 8 areas like South Carolina, where you just need protection for a few nights of deep freeze. This protective cloth is your reliable, temporary shield against sudden, unexpected cold. Use it when you need it and take it off on mild, sunny days to let the plant breathe and get light. But what if frost isn't your main problem? What if the temperature is hovering right at freezing, but your plants are still showing signs of stress? That leads us to the silent killer in winter gardens. Trick number 2 is all about sneaky wind damage. Trick 2. Protect from wind chill. Many gardeners focus only on the temperature reading on the thermometer, but they forget the devastating, unseen impact of wind. This is why trick number 2 is to actively protect your pots from wind chill. Wind doesn't just make the temperature feel colder for us, it is lethal to potted plants for 2 primary reasons. First, wind chill accelerates heat loss. Remember how we wrapped the pots to trap a layer of still air? Wind tears that layer of still air away instantly. A strong, cold wind constantly rushes over the pot, stripping away any trapped warmth and driving the soil temperature down much faster than still air at the same temperature would. Second, and even more dangerously, wind causes severe desiccation. This is just a fancy way of saying the wind dries your plant out incredibly fast. Even in winter, plants still lose moisture through their leaves and stems, a process called transpiration. A strong, relentless winter wind, especially one coming from the north or east, acts like a giant, moisture-sucking hairdryer. It draws water out of the plant faster than the roots, which might be slightly frozen or dormant, can replace it. This is the sneaky killer. The plant doesn't freeze to death, it dries out to death. This is particularly true for broadleaf evergreens in containers, like rhododendrons or boxwood, which lose water through their leaves year-round. The solution is to create a physical windbreak. If you can't move your pots to a naturally sheltered spot, you need to build one. This doesn't have to be fancy. A temporary wall made of sheets of plywood, some stacked hay bales, or even tall, tightly wrapped sections of burlap stretched between stakes can break the line of sight and velocity of the wind. If you are a balcony gardener in a major city like New York or London, the wind can be intense. Use the railing, hang some heavy-duty screens, or simply place your pots right up against the apartment building wall, which is usually the warmest, most protected spot. Just slowing the wind down is enough to keep that precious moisture in the soil and stop the accelerated heat loss. By implementing these 2 often missed survival tactics, strategic watering and wind protection, you are now addressing the complete threat profile of winter. You're not just fighting the cold, you're fighting the dry, desiccating wind and the rapid temperature swings. We're almost at the finish line with the biggest and most reliable trick yet to come, plus that special bonus hack that can truly save a plant in a desperate situation. Stick with me as we reveal the ultimate survival move and the key to winning the winter battle. Trick 1. Bring them indoors or create a mini greenhouse environment. We have arrived at trick number 1. The simplest and most universally reliable method for saving your most cherished potted plants. bring them indoors, or create a sheltered mini greenhouse environment. While the previous 9 tricks are phenomenal for pushing the hardiness of a plant outdoors, nothing beats controlling the environment completely. This is the undisputed winner when it comes to saving those really tender, expensive, or sentimental specimens, things like a fragrant gardenia or a mature bird of paradise that simply cannot handle a frost. The best indoor option is a bright, cool sunroom or a heated garage that maintains a temperature just above freezing, say 40 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. If you're bringing them into a main living space, place them in your brightest window, ideally one facing south. This is particularly important for plants that are still semi-active, like your indoor herbs or small ficus trees. Visualize the pure joy of this. Imagine it's the dead of January. A heavy blanket of snow covers the ground outside your window in Buffalo, New York or Glasgow, Scotland. Yet, right there behind the glass, your basil is still growing. Your small kaffir lime is still holding its leaves, and you can sip your tea with a burst of summer green right beside you. That is the ultimate victory over winter. Skip this trick for your most tender items, and you are almost certainly guaranteeing you'll be buying a replacement every February. But let's be realistic. Not everyone has a sunroom or a huge south-facing window. This is where the mini greenhouse option comes in. You can buy small pop-up greenhouses, often called walk-in sheds, for under $100. They use heavy plastic sheeting over a metal frame and act as a fantastic thermal buffer. Placed on a patio against a sheltered wall, they can raise the temperature inside by 10 to 20 degrees on a sunny day and keep things snug overnight. This is perfect for overwintering numerous potted geraniums or cannas that just need to be kept frost-free. Remember, when you move plants indoors, you must check them carefully for pests. Use a quick spray of insecticidal soap, and you need to drastically cut back on watering. But this is the only trick that gives you complete 100% control over the freezing element. You've made it through the 10 essential tricks, and now it's time for the payoff I promised, the bonus trick, the simple hack that has saved some of my most vulnerable plants in desperate situations. This secret hack involves using simple, cheap, and readily available materials to absorb heat during the day and release it slowly at night right into the root zone. We are talking about utilizing the power of thermal mass, the ability of a material to store heat. Here is the brilliant, simple idea. Fill several old plastic gallon milk jugs or large water bottles with water. Paint them completely black and position them tightly around your potted plants. Why black water jugs? First, the black paint is crucial because black is the single best color for absorbing solar radiation. Even on a cloudy day, and especially on a sunny winter day, the black surface will absorb maximum heat from the sun. Second, the water inside the jug has an incredibly high specific heat capacity. This means it takes a lot of energy to heat it up, but crucially, it takes a long time for it to cool down. Throughout the afternoon, these black jugs absorb solar heat, and after the sun sets and the temperature plunges, they begin to slowly radiate that stored warmth back out. If you cluster your pots and place these black, sun-warmed jugs tightly around the container walls, they will bathe the pot in a bubble of residual, gentle warmth for hours during the night. This simple trick has saved tender plants like potted Meyer lemon trees and fig cuttings even in the unforgiving cold of USDA Zone 5, where overnight temperatures can dip far below the plant's survival point. This is the difference maker, a free, reusable thermal battery protecting your most precious roots. You don't need electricity, you just need sunshine and a little black paint. You are now armed with 10 powerful, practical, and proven tricks to keep your beloved potted plants alive and thriving right through the deepest winter. Let's quickly recap these life-saving steps. Trick 10. The Plant Huddle. Group pots tightly together for insulation and communal warmth. Trick 9. The Mulch Blanket. Add a 3 to 4 inch layer of straw or shredded leaves to protect the soil surface. Trick 8. The pot jacket. Wrap containers with bubble wrap or burlap to stop freezing air from attacking the sides. Trick 7. The elevation break. Get those pots off cold concrete with pot feet, bricks, or pallets. Trick 6. The shelter strategy. Move them under eaves or into unheated garages to escape the worst weather. Trick 5. The earth burrow. Bury the pots in the ground up to the rim for the ultimate thermal protection. Trick 4. The strategic drink. Water deeply before a hard freeze to use water's thermal properties but avoid over-soaking. Trick 3. The breathable shield. Use frost cloths or row covers, not plastic, to temporarily raise air temperature. Trick 2. The wind wall. Build a temporary windbreak to prevent lethal desiccation and accelerated heat loss. Trick 1. The indoor hotel. Bring your most tender favorites into a sunroom or bright window for guaranteed survival. Bonus hack: use black, water-filled jugs as solar-charged, slow-release heat batteries around your pot cluster. Now, a quick note on zones. If you are a gardener in Zone 7 and below, that's the cold belt running across the northern U.S., Canada, and parts of the U.K., you'll likely need to use multiple layers of these tricks: huddle, wrap, elevate, and potentially bury or bring inside. If you're in Zone 8 and above, like the warmer parts of the Pacific Northwest or the southern U.S., a simple wrap and mulch might be enough for a vast majority of your hardier pots, reserving the indoor trick for truly tender plants. Know your zone and apply the appropriate layers of defense. So I want to hear from you. What's your zone? And what is the hardest plant? That temperamental fig, that sensitive bay laurel, or maybe that giant bougainvillea that you are fighting to save this year? Let's compare our struggles and successes in the comments right now. We've reached the end of our winter survival guide, but this is really just the beginning of your victory. You see, winter doesn't have to be the end of the line for your garden. It shouldn't be a source of dread. Instead, it can be the test that your plants survive and the proof of your skill as a thoughtful, prepared gardener. You're not just stuffing a pot under a bush, you are actively engaging with nature, creating microclimates, and outsmarting the frost. Now, imagine that moment. You step outside in early spring. The air is mild, the sun is shining, and the risk of frost is finally gone. You begin the process of unwrapping your pots, pulling away the straw, taking down the burlap, and lifting the pots out of the ground. And as you peel back the layers of protection, you see it. Bright, fresh green shoots pushing up from the soil. The roots are firm and healthy. The plant is not just alive, it's vibrant and ready to explode with life. That feeling, that incredible surge of pride and accomplishment, that is the reward for the work you put in today. You didn't just keep them alive, you literally beat winter itself. You ensured the continuity of your garden, saved yourself hundreds of dollars, and proved that a little preparation makes all the difference. If you learned even one new valuable trick today, whether it was the pot huddle, the blackwater jug hack, or the secret of watering before a frost, please give this video a thumbs up. That simple click helps the channel tremendously and allows us to reach more gardeners who need to save their plants this winter. Comment below your go-to winter hack that I didn't mention so we can all learn from your experience. And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe. Tap that button now so we can continue to grow smarter, not harder, through every single season together. Thanks for watching, stay warm, and happy gardening.